Today is Father's Day 2019. Father's Day always lands on the third Sunday of every June, and there's a reason why for that. I'm going to share it with you here in just a minute. Um, I want to say thank you to all the dads out there for all the hard work you've done, all the hours you've put in at work, all the energy you've spent um, in an effort to be with your children, to raise them, to provide for them, and you've tried to be moral and emotional support for your children. And sometimes it seems like a thankless job. Sometimes it seems like being a thankless job for a mother too. But we don't want to forget about fathers, and that's why we have Father's Day. And it was started by a young woman by the name of Sonora Smart Dodd back in 1909. She went to a Mother's Day celebration. Mother's Day had been around for a while. But when she was there, she realized, or at least it came to her mind, that there was nothing, as far as she could tell, for fathers. And she didn't like that. You see, the reason why she didn't like it was because her father was a Civil War veteran. And when Sonora was 16, her mother died and left the sole responsibility of raising the 5 or 6 children they had to the father. Now, it's not like her mother did it to her father. I don't mean for it to sound that way. Now that I say it out loud, it does kind of sound that way. But I just want to emphasize that he was left with the sole responsibility of raising the children. She saw how hard it was for him, and she wanted to honor him. So she sought to make it a national holiday. But what she did was the next year in Spokane, Washington, 1910, she had a special Father's Day celebration. It was embraced by that city on that day, but there was many other things going on that day, so it wasn't the only thing that was receiving attention at that time, and it wasn't something that was celebrated every year, and it didn't have any kind of long-term uh, lasting effect. And so it wasn't even really given any kind of prominence, national prominence, until Calvin Coolidge spoke of it in 1924. Now, Sonora Dodd did not give up on this. It wasn't until 1972, under President Richard Nixon, that Father's Day was made a national holiday. She never gave up. It took her 62 years to bring this to fruition. And it's something I'm sure if her father was around, he would have appreciated greatly. But I think it's remarkable that a child fought so long for their father and for the fathers out there everywhere. She understood what it was to actually assume the mantle of completely raising a child on their own. There's a lot of chatter and a lot of talk about single moms nowadays, and there should be. It's very hard. Uh, you know, Fatherhood has lost something along the way over time. There's been a cultural breakdown for many reasons, of which I don't even want to get into now. And so there's a lot of single mothers out there. But there was a time that there was a lot of single fathers too. Tuberculosis killed more people worldwide than the Black Plague ever did. Um, Alcoholism oftentimes left women to leave children to raise on their own. And so, and then in going back to fathers, a lot of women did die in childbirth back in the day. And so look at Theodore Roosevelt. His wife Alice died upon giving birth on Valentine's Day, of all things. So, and I spoke of that last Valentine's Day a year or so ago. So this wasn't unusual. And I think it's quite remarkable that Sonora Dodd took 62 years to pay homage to her father. And that's love and that's respect. And that's just something I think is so touching. Now, Father's Day hasn't always been easily embraced. And that has nothing to do with women, for the most part. It has nothing to do with it because men are just not as sentimental as women are. They didn't embrace it. They saw it as just another form of commercialism, another way for men to have to spend their hard-earned cash on themselves, and they didn't want to do that. So they didn't just embrace it as much as women did. They're just not as sentimental. And so there you have it. That's kind of why that's happened that way. Now, as far as why it's celebrated on the third Sunday of every June is because, well, initially Sonora Dodd wanted Father's Day to be celebrated on June 5th, which is her father's birthday. But Congress kind of felt like they had other pressing matters to take care of. Preachers in the pulpit felt like they needed a few additional weeks to prepare sermons for it. So it was bumped up a couple of weeks, or bumped forward a couple of weeks, however you want to think of that. And so that's why we celebrate on the third Sunday of every June. Now, one of the things about Father's Day I want to bring up is that, and it's kind of universally accepted that far less money is spent on fathers at Father's Day than there is on Mother's Day. And that's not entirely the fault of women either. It's not, so if any man hears this and starts bashing women for it, you need to keep a couple of things in mind. As far as gift givers go, fathers seem like they might be a little more difficult to buy gifts for. And it's really not that we're not really hard shot for, but women are very specific in terms of what they want and stating what they want. And so it's a lot easier to narrow down exactly what to get. They will let you know. Men are far more hesitant to say exactly what they want because they just figure, if I want something, I'll get it. They have a hard time verbalizing it, but in their heads, they know there's a lot of things they want, and they just don't want to put the burden of that on their children. So that's oftentimes why that happens that way. But statistically, men get cards more often than anything else. Now, I know a lot of you people out there are taking your fathers out for dinner. You're spending time with them. You're posting on social media. And that's great. That's exactly what you should do. You should spend time with them that way. That's how you should celebrate it. So a lot of this doesn't apply to you. I understand that. But statistically, men get cards more than anything else. But the imbalance of expenditure was such a phenomenon that it inclined one psychology lecturer out of the University of Massachusetts at Amherst to take a look at this, to study it. And one of her discoveries was that men are far happier and content with the gifts they receive on Father's Day than mothers are with the gifts they receive on Mother's Day. And a lot of that has to do with just expectations. I thought that was interesting. I don't know that it really says a lot. I'm not sure. But anyway, that's what she discovered. But here's the thing. It's never really about the money I don't think really to either parent, the mother or the father. I don't think that's what it's about. I think it's about, do you put thought into what you're doing for your father? If you get him the same thing every year, he's going to know that you're not really thinking too much. So try to be creative. Spend a little bit of time thinking about what you could do differently, and that will say a lot to him. But it doesn't require you spending money. In fact, just show him that you love him. And more than that, show him that you respect him. Let him know that you appreciate the hard work that he's put in for you. Thank him for sticking around. Thank him for giving you advice, even if you didn't take it. And by the way, you should take his advice. So thank him for his advice. Show him that you appreciate it. Let him know that you appreciate all the time he spent with you, and even the time he couldn't spend with you because he was working hard to take care of you and the family. Let him know that, and it'll go a long ways. You see, my father died 15 years ago. It might have been 16, something like that. I can't really recall accurately anymore. But he had an aortic aneurysm. And about a year or so before he died, on Father's Day, I was going to tell my father that I loved him. I planned to put my arms around him and tell him that I loved him. Now, this was not something that was a common occurrence for me. See, my father was a pastor of a church, and I wanted to do this before anybody got there, before anybody ever arrived. So we were in the church, we were kind of setting things up, and I walked up to my dad, as far as he knew, spontaneously. I put my arms around him and said, "Dad, I want you to know I love you." And he says, "Oh, I really appreciate that." And so from the pulpit that day, he actually told the congregation that I had done this. I didn't ask for that. I didn't see that coming. That's not why I did it. But he was so moved by it, and so he was so overflowing with joy that it really let me know how much that meant to him. And that's why I want to tell you guys today. Let your fathers know. Put your arms around him. Tell him that you love him. Tell him that you respect him. It's going to go a long ways. He's going to appreciate it. He's never going to forget it. And don't Don't just do it once. Make it a habit. I wish I would have. I sincerely wish I would have, because the following years when he went down and he didn't pass away right away, I certainly got plenty of other chance to tell him that I love him and spend time with him, and I'm glad I did. But I wish I would have spent a lifetime of doing that. And that's what Sonora Dodd did. She spent 62 years and effort to show her father respect and her love. And that's what I encourage you to do today. You know, in our culture nowadays, usually there's only one half of this whole you know, parental obligation that is honored. You know, in our culture today, women are esteemed so highly, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be, but they're almost deified, they're idolized. They can almost do no wrong when they're spoken about. But fathers need to be honored too. See, in our culture, there has to be a good guy and a bad guy, a victim and an enemy, somebody that's good and somebody that's all good, somebody that's all bad, and there's no in between. And in our culture's mind, it has to be that way. So if one is good, the other has to be bad. And oftentimes that's how men are portrayed. Show your father that's not how you think. You know, both parents, mother and father, should be highly esteemed, highly valued, honored, and respected. Keep that in mind today. I hope you have a great Father's Day. I hope this meant something to you. If it did, share it, and keep showing love and respect. I'll catch you guys later.